Y'all, the opposition already. So it is 9:55 a.m. We're getting ready to jump into the new Bible study. But y'all, just me trying to read the chapter, trying to get the lessons done has already been a battle. And then when I finally was able to complete the full video, which was 15 minutes long, I uploaded it, put the title, I put it to private so I could watch it before I post just to make sure everything's good. It had no audio. So I said, okay, maybe it's just my laptop is acting up. Checked my phone to see if I could hear myself on my phone. Still no audio. I became upset. I became livid. I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not rereading this chapter again. I've done so much. I have my little paper here because it lets me know, if y'all can see it, the chapters that I've already completed. So wherever you see a check mark or an X, I'm done reading those chapters. So far we've read Nehemiah, Haggai, Ezra, and now we're getting into Solomon rebuilding God's temple. And I was so mad, I was like, forget this, I'm not doing it. So I had to calm down. I had to pray because y'all, it was opposition, okay? Opposition, but we're going to go forward and we're going to get this done, okay? So it is 1 Kings chapter 5, verse 1. King Hiram of Tyre had always been a loyal friend of David. When Hiram learned that David's son Solomon was the new king of Israel, he sent ambassadors to congratulate him. Then Solomon sent this message back to Hiram. You know that my father David was not able to build a temple to honor the name of the Lord his God because of the many wars waged against him by surrounding nations. He cannot build until the Lord gave him victory over all his enemies. The text is so small, y'all. I'm so sorry. But now the Lord my God has given me peace on every side. I have no enemies and all is well. So I am planning to build a temple to honor the name of the Lord my God, just as he had instructed my father David. But the Lord told him, your son whom I will place on your throne will build the temple to honor my name. Therefore, please command that cedars from Lebanon be cut for me. Let my men work alongside yours, and I will pay your men whatever wages you ask. As you know, there is no one among us who can cut timber like you Sidonians. When Hiram received Solomon's message, he was very pleased and said, praise the Lord today for giving David a wise son to be the king of the great nation of Israel. Then he sent this reply to Solomon. I have received your message and I will supply all the cedar and cypress timber you need. My servants will bring the logs from the Lebanon mountains to the Mediterranean Sea and make them into rafts and float them along the coast to whatever place you choose. Then we will break the rafts apart so you can carry the logs away. You can pay me by supplying me with food for my household. So Hiram supplied as much cedar and cypress timber as Solomon desired. In return, Solomon sent him an annual payment of 100,000 bushels of wheat for his household and 110 gallons of pure olive oil. So the Lord gave wisdom to Solomon, just as he had promised, and Hiram and Solomon made a formal alliance of peace. Then King Solomon conscripted a labor force of 30,000 men from all Israel. He sent them to Lebanon in shifts, 10,000 every month, so that each man would be 1 month in Lebanon and 2 months at home. Adoniram was in charge of this labor force. Solomon also had 70,000 common laborers, 80,000 quarry workers in the hill country, and 3,600 foremen to supervise the work. At the king's command, they quarried large blocks of high-quality stone and sharpened them to make the foundation of the temple. Men from the city of Gibal helped Solomon's and Hiram's builders prepare the timber and stone for the temple. All right, y'all. So now we're going to get into the lessons here. And like I said, I am just a little bit burned out because the first video, plus all the other attempts, failed. Okay. So number 1, rest is God's way of resetting you for the next assignment. So Solomon says God gave him rest on every side. No enemies, no conflict, no instability. So this rest was relief from warfare, but it was also reset, recovery, and realignment. So David's season was fighting, but Solomon's season was building. Okay. So oftentimes when you're the generational curse breaker, your season is a season of fighting. But if you have children, they're going to be the ones to rebuild. They're going to be the ones that's building because you've done all the warfare to prepare them to do the work, the finished work. Okay. So David's season was fighting, Solomon's season was building. God removed the battles so Solomon could focus on the temple without distraction. Okay, so that's very important. We learned that lesson here. So number 2, God sent partnerships. I'm speaking so fast. God sent partnerships are necessary to complete divine assignments. So Solomon needed Hiram's cedar, cypress, craftsmen, and international cooperation. God didn't allow him to build alone because the assignment was too large for one person. So oftentimes we want to do things alone. We don't want any outside help. We got this, right? But there are some assignments where you are going to need divine help. You're going to need that assistance, that cooperation, okay? Hiram's loyalty to David became provision for Solomon, proving that some relationships exist because of your calling, not your comfort, okay? So as we learned in Ezra, as we learned in Nehemiah, it was a community effort. Everybody had to come together to rebuild, okay? Number 3, wisdom shows up in how you organize what God gives you. Solomon's wisdom wasn't just in his speech, it was in his structure, okay? He levied 30,000 workers, okay? He rotated them monthly, appointed overseers, coordinated stonecutters, and managed logistics with precision. So Solomon was very wise. He knew what needed to be done. He was a very structured king, okay? So this teaches us that wisdom is not measured by deep thought or clever words. Wisdom is measured by how well you manage the season God places you in, okay? So we have got to be good stewards of our time and what God has given us. So number 4, preparation is the proof you believe God's promise. Okay, so Solomon didn't wait for the temple to appear. He prepared materials, labors, treaties, okay, timelines, and agreements. Preparation is faith made visible, the evidence that you trust what God said. So you have to be in preparation. If God is giving you rest, you need to be starting to prepare, starting to get ready to build, because God's getting ready to have you be about his business, okay? There is no more war for Solomon. Now he can start to rebuild. Number 5, peace is God's signal that it's time to build. And that's basically what we're leading up to. So again, David fought, but Solomon is building, okay? God gave Solomon peace so he could construct what David could not, okay? So peace is not the end of the story. Peace is the announcement that the building season has begun. When God settles your environment, he's basically saying this, okay? I'm not saying he's saying this verbatim. This is what it implies, okay? The warfare is over, now move forward, right? So let me say it again. The warfare is over, now move forward. Peace is not passive. Peace is instruction, okay? So whenever you're in that season of peace, it's not for you to just lay there and rest and do nothing. That's the perfect time to start building, start strategizing, create the plan, right? Write the vision, make it plain. That's the perfect time when you don't have any opposition, because you don't have to worry about warring and still trying to build at the same time. And we saw that with Nehemiah. They had to war and build, okay? They had to be in prayer. It was a lot of spiritual warfare, so much opposition. And also with Ezra, okay? There was a lot of opposition, but with Solomon, we see here, there's peace, there's relief, okay? He's able to do this without any interference, okay? So number 6, God fulfills promises through process, not instant results. And I think this is where we get stressed out. We don't see the instant results. Well, God, you told me to write the book, but nobody's buying it. God, you told me to start the business, but nobody's buying anything. I don't have any clients, right? So again, God fulfills promises through process, not instant results. So the temple required treaties, materials, labor, wisdom, rest, cooperation, administration, preparation, and execution. Woo! It's a lot of work, all right? Yeah. So God fulfills his promises through steps, order, timing, and process, not shortcuts or sudden outcomes. So oftentimes we believe, okay, God, he's telling me to do this. He's telling me to do that. Oh, I'm getting ready to step into this, step into that. Not saying you aren't going to, but it's still a process. It still takes time. It's no different than a seed being planted in the ground. You got to wait for it, but while you're waiting for it, water it, okay? While you're waiting, you could be working on something else because you already planted that seed in the ground. And this is for anybody out there that's looking for a job. You don't just sit there and wait. God's going to bring it. God's going to do it. But what are you doing? Are you updating your resume? Are you putting in the job applications? Are you putting yourself out there? Are you going around to different buildings and, companies and letting them know, hey, are you hiring? Do your part and God's going to do his part. Sorry about that. We have to do our part and God is going to do his part, okay? So this teaches that God's promises unfold through intentional progression, okay? Don't stop. Keep going. Keep progressing. Keep doing the work. Solomon honored the process with excellence, patience, and structure. The promise was real, but the process was still required, okay? So God's promises are real, but the process is still required. Okay? Nehemiah had to do the work. Ezra and the people had to do the work. Okay? Esther. Who else? Daniel. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Right? They had to stand their ground. So it's always something that we have to do for the people to see and know that we serve a great God. Okay? A God that fulfills his promises. A God that gives us assignments. He gives us missions. And they have to be fulfilled. They can only be fulfilled through him. Daniel wouldn't have been saved from that lion's den if it wasn't for God's hand. Esther and the people wouldn't be saved if it wasn't for God's hand. Okay? Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. God's hand. Okay? Everything that we have, everything that we're building, everything that we're creating, it is for God. It's for his glory, not ours. We got to take ourselves out of the equation. And I'm telling y'all, I got upset because I was like, I put 15 minutes into that. And I couldn't even hear myself. And now I got to do it again. Yeah, you got to do it again. So essentially, I was acting like Moses, when he threw down the 10 commandments and they broke, and God had him go right back up there. So that's what I had to do. I had to get right back in here and begin to teach y'all again. This isn't the first time. My first YouTube channel, when Jesus told me, speak Daphne, it had 9,000 subscribers. I was so frustrated. I was so overwhelmed. I deleted the whole channel. Yeah. So, yeah. Don't do that. Because now you got me rebuilding it again. Okay? And this time it's called rebuilding God's house. You ain't going to tear down my house. You're going to rebuild it. And that's what he has me doing. So learn from me. Don't be like me. I'll see y'all in the next teaching. Bye-bye, y'all.